A billionaire was forced to marry a woman his father's lawyers chose for him. On their wedding day, he took one look at her and decided she wasn't good enough, wasn't attractive enough, wasn't thin enough to be seen on his arm. He treated her with cold disdain, made her feel small and worthless, and counted down the days until their contract marriage would end. But what this arrogant CEO discovered about his wife 6 months later, what she had been hiding from him all along about who she really was and what she was capable of, would shatter every assumption he'd ever made about value, worth, and what it means to truly see another human being. This is Marcus Sullivan's story, and the truth about Emma Torres that changed everything. A story that begins not with love or attraction, but with a will, a desperate clause, and a woman who agreed to marry a stranger for reasons that had nothing to do with his wealth and everything to do with survival. Before we start the story, leave a comment below and tell us what city you're watching from. We love seeing our Deep Stories community growing all around the world. And at the end of this story, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Let us know what you think. If you believe that a person's worth has nothing to do with their appearance, that intelligence and character matter more than physical beauty, and that the people we judge most harshly are sometimes the ones who will save us, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is Marcus Sullivan's journey, a story about a billionaire who was forced to marry a woman he judged by her weight, and what he discovered about his wife that left him absolutely speechless. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the day Marcus Sullivan's world fell apart, the day his father died and left behind a will that would force Marcus to choose between his inheritance and his pride. Let's begin. Marcus Sullivan stood in the marble lobby of Sullivan Tower on a cold February morning, the kind of morning where New York's wind cut through expensive suits and reminded even billionaires that some things couldn't be controlled. He was 45 years old, fit from his personal trainer, impeccably dressed in a Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary, and absolutely convinced that he had everything figured out. His father, Richard Sullivan, had built Sullivan Financial from nothing into an empire worth $8 billion. And now, after Richard's sudden death from a heart attack 3 weeks ago, Marcus was about to inherit it all. Or so he thought. The lawyers had called an emergency meeting. Marcus strode into the conference room with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no, who'd never had to question whether he deserved what he had. He nodded at the assembled attorneys, poured himself coffee from the silver service, and settled into the leather chair at the head of the table, like it had always been his throne. "What's this about, gentlemen?" Marcus asked, checking his Rolex. "I have a board meeting in an hour." The lead attorney, Gerald Morrison, a man who'd worked with Richard Sullivan for 30 years, cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable, which should have been Marcus's first warning. "Mr. Sullivan, your father's will contains some unusual provisions. Provisions that will significantly impact your inheritance." Marcus waved a hand dismissively. "My father was eccentric. Everyone knew that. Just tell me what hoops I need to jump through to finalize the transfer of assets." Gerald opened a leather folder and began to read, i.e., Richard Sullivan, being of sound mind and body, do hereby make the following declarations regarding the distribution of my estate. To my son Marcus, I leave controlling interest in Sullivan Financial, all real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and liquid assets totaling approximately $8.2 billion. Marcus smiled. That's more like it. But Gerald wasn't finished reading. However, said inheritance is contingent upon the following condition being met within 60 days of my death. Marcus Sullivan must enter into a legal marriage and remain married for a minimum of 12 months. Should he fail to meet this condition, all assets shall be transferred to the Richard Sullivan Foundation for distribution to various charitable organizations. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Marcus stared at Gerald, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry." "What?" "You must be married within 60 days and remain married for 12 months, Gerald repeated slowly. Your father was quite explicit. He believed you needed to learn commitment, responsibility, and that there were things in life more important than quarterly earnings reports. Marcus stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. This is insane. He can't do this. My father can't hold my inheritance hostage because he thought I needed to be married. Actually, he can. Another attorney spoke up. The will is ironclad. We spent 3 weeks reviewing it after your father's death, looking for loopholes. There aren't any. You have 2 choices, Mr. Sullivan. Get married within 60 days or lose everything. Marcus felt the room spinning. This couldn't be happening. His father, even from the grave, was trying to control him, trying to force him into something Marcus had successfully avoided his entire adult life. He'd dated plenty of women, beautiful women, models and actresses and socialites, but he'd never wanted to marry any of them. Marriage meant vulnerability, compromise, sharing power. Marcus Sullivan didn't share power with anyone. How much time do I have? Marcus asked, his mind already racing through possibilities. 57 days, Gerald said quietly. Your father passed away 23 days ago. The 60-day clock started then. Marcus grabbed his phone and walked out of the conference room without another word. He had 57 days to find a wife, to enter into a marriage that would last at least a year, or lose $8 billion and the company his family had built over 2 generations. It was, without question, the most ridiculous situation Marcus Sullivan had ever found himself in. But Marcus Sullivan was nothing if not a problem solver. And like every problem he'd faced in business, this one could be solved with the right strategy, the right approach, and absolutely no emotional involvement whatsoever. That afternoon, Marcus sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor and stared out at Manhattan stretching below him. His assistant had left a stack of messages on his desk, but he ignored them all. He needed to think. He needed a plan. Marriage. His father wanted him married. Fine. Marcus would get married, but it would be on his terms. A business arrangement. Nothing more. No love, no romance, no messy emotions that could complicate things. He would find someone who understood this was a transaction, someone who needed money and was willing to play a role for 12 months, someone who wouldn't expect anything beyond the contract. Marcus picked up his phone and called his personal attorney, not the ones who'd delivered his father's bombshell, but a shark named David Chen, who specialized in making problems disappear. David, Marcus said when the man answered, I need you to draft a marriage contract, not a prenup. An actual marriage contract. Employment terms for a wife. David was quiet for a moment. That's an unusual request. I'm in an unusual situation, Marcus replied. And then he explained everything. The will, the 60-day deadline, the requirement that he stay married for a year. I need someone who will sign on the dotted line, play the role convincingly enough to satisfy the will's executor, and then walk away when the 12 months are up. How much are you willing to pay? David asked pragmatically. $500,000, Marcus said. Paid at the end of the 12 months, assuming all contract terms are met. That's life-changing money for most people. It'll be enough. Find me candidates, women who need the money badly enough to agree to these terms. Women who understand this is strictly business. And David, he added, make sure they sign ironclad NDAs. I don't want this ending up in tabloids. Consider it done, David replied. I'll have candidates for you within a week. But Marcus didn't have a week to waste, and he didn't trust anyone else to handle this correctly. He spent that evening researching, scrolling through databases and social media, looking for possibilities. He needed someone desperate enough to accept, someone who wouldn't cause problems, someone who would fade into the background of his life and not demand attention or affection. And then he found her, Emma Torres. She appeared in a LinkedIn search Marcus ran for financial consultants in the New York area. Her profile picture showed a woman in her late 30s, plus size with dark hair pulled back in a professional bun, wearing a blazer and a slight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her profile listed an impressive education, a PhD in economics from Stanford, years of experience at top consulting firms, and currently self-employed as an independent consultant. But what caught Marcus's attention was a small detail in her recent activity. She'd posted about a fundraising campaign 3 months ago, asking her network to help support cancer treatment for her mother. The campaign had raised barely $10,000 of a $100,000 goal. Here was a woman who needed money desperately. Here was a woman dealing with a crisis that $500,000 could solve. Here was a woman who, based on her appearance, probably didn't get a lot of attention from men like Marcus. She would understand that this was a business arrangement. She wouldn't have unrealistic expectations about romance or love. She was perfect. Marcus had his assistant set up a meeting, framing it as a business consultation. Emma Torres arrived at Sullivan Tower 3 days later, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a navy blue suit that was professional but clearly off the rack. She shook Marcus's hand with a firm grip and met his eyes directly. "Mr. Sullivan, thank you for taking the time to meet with me. I understand you're interested in discussing financial consulting services. Actually," Marcus said, gesturing for her to sit, "I have a different kind of proposal. A business proposition that I think will be mutually beneficial." Emma sat down, her expression curious but guarded. "I'm listening." Marcus didn't believe in wasting time. "Ms. Torres, I need to be married within the next 54 days, and I need to stay married for 12 months. It's a condition of my father's will. I lose my inheritance if I don't comply. I'm looking for someone to enter into a contractual marriage with me, a business arrangement with clear terms and substantial compensation. I'm offering $500,000, paid at the end of the 12-month period, in exchange for you agreeing to marry me, live in my home, attend necessary social functions as my wife, and then quietly divorce me when the contract period ends." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stared at him, and Marcus couldn't read her expression. Finally, she spoke. "You want to pay me $500,000 to pretend to be your wife for a year?" "That's correct," Marcus confirmed. "There would be a detailed contract outlining expectations, boundaries, and terms. You would have your own bedroom, your own space. I'm not expecting any kind of physical relationship. This is purely a legal arrangement to satisfy my father's will. Everything would be documented and professional." Emma leaned back in her chair, and for a moment Marcus thought she was going to laugh in his face and walk out. Instead, she asked quietly, "Why me?" Marcus had prepared an answer for this. "You're educated, intelligent, and professional. You understand business arrangements. And I'm aware that you're dealing with significant medical expenses for your mother. This money could solve that problem for you. You help me keep my inheritance, and I help you save your mother's life. It's a transaction that benefits both of us." Something flickered across Emma's face, hurt, maybe, or anger, but it was gone so quickly Marcus wasn't sure he'd seen it at all. "You've done your research on me," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I have," Marcus admitted. "I don't make business decisions without proper due diligence." Emma was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus could see her thinking, calculating, weighing options. Finally, she spoke. "I need to see the contract before I agree to anything, and I need 24 hours to think about it." "Fair enough," Marcus replied, sliding a folder across his desk. "David prepared this yesterday. Take your time. Review it with a lawyer if you want, but I do need an answer soon. The clock is ticking." Emma stood up, taking the folder. She looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't quite read, something between sadness and resignation. "Mr. Sullivan, if I do this, if I agree to this arrangement, I need you to understand something. I'm not doing it because I think it's romantic or because I have some fantasy about you falling in love with me. I'm doing it because my mother is dying, and I would do anything, including marry a stranger, to give her a chance at survival. This is a business transaction for me, too." Marcus nodded, relieved. Then we understand each other perfectly." Emma left his office without another word. 23 hours later, she called. Her voice was steady, emotionless. "I'll do it. I have some additional terms I want added to the contract, but yes, I'll marry you." Marcus smiled. He'd solved his problem. 53 days later, on a cold April morning in a small room at City Hall, Marcus Sullivan married Emma Torres. There were no guests, no flowers, no music, just a judge, 2 witnesses provided by the courthouse, and a transaction being legally formalized. Marcus wore an Armani suit. Emma wore a simple cream-colored dress that probably cost less than Marcus's tie. When the judge asked if Marcus took Emma to be his lawfully wedded wife, Marcus said, "I do," with all the enthusiasm of someone signing a contract at a board meeting. And when Emma said, "I do," her voice was quiet but firm, like she was accepting a job offer rather than entering into a marriage. They signed the paperwork, posed for the required photo, and walked out of City Hall as husband and wife. Marcus's driver was waiting. He opened the door for them, and Emma climbed into the back of the Mercedes without a word. Marcus settled in beside her, already checking his phone for messages. The driver pulled away from the curb, heading toward Marcus's penthouse in Tribeca. The silence in the car was heavy. Finally, Marcus spoke. "My assistant had your belongings moved to the penthouse this morning. You have the master guest suite. It has its own bathroom and sitting area. I've arranged for a credit card in your name for any expenses you need. And we have a social calendar I'll need you to be aware of. Several charity events, a few business dinners." Emma nodded, but didn't look at him. Understood. "Do you have any questions?" Marcus asked. Emma turned to look at him then, and her eyes were unreadable. Just one. "Do you always treat major life events like business meetings, or is this special treatment just for me?" Marcus felt a flicker of irritation. "This is a business arrangement, Miss Torres. I mean, Mrs. Sullivan. That's what we both agreed to. I'm simply being professional." "Of course," Emma said quietly, turning back to look out the window. "Professional. That's exactly what this is." They arrived at the penthouse, and Marcus showed Emma to her room. It was beautiful, he had to admit. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River, a king-size bed with luxury linens, a marble bathroom that was bigger than most people's entire apartments. Emma set down her suitcase and looked around, her expression carefully neutral. "It's lovely. Thank you. If you need anything, just let my assistant know," Marcus said from the doorway. "I have a conference call in 20 minutes, so I'll be in my office." Emma turned to look at him, and for just a second, Marcus saw something raw in her eyes. "This is your wedding day," she said softly, "and you're going to spend it on a conference call." "It's an important deal," Marcus replied defensively. "The markets don't stop just because I got married." "Of course they don't," Emma said, and she closed the door. Marcus stood in the hallway for a moment, feeling strangely unsettled, but he shook it off and went to his office. This was exactly what they'd both agreed to. A business arrangement. Nothing more. The first 2 months of their marriage followed a pattern. Marcus left early for the office, usually before Emma was even awake. He worked late, often not coming home until 9 or 10 at night. When he did see Emma, their interactions were cordially formal. She asked about his day. He gave vague answers. She mentioned she was working on some consulting projects from home. He nodded absently. They were like roommates who'd signed a lease together, not a married couple. The few times they had to appear in public together, Emma played her role perfectly. At a charity gala in May, she wore a dark green gown that Marcus's stylist had selected, stood beside him with a pleasant smile, and made appropriate small talk with donors and board members. No one would have guessed their marriage was a sham, but Marcus noticed things, even though he tried not to. He noticed that Emma never asked him for anything beyond the basic necessities. She didn't use the credit card for shopping sprees or expensive dinners. She didn't redecorate her room or demand his attention. She was almost invisible in his life, which should have been perfect, except somehow it bothered him. He also noticed that Emma was smart, far smarter than the women Marcus usually dated. She read voraciously, always had a book on the coffee table, business journals, economics textbooks, occasionally a novel. Once, Marcus glanced at what she was reading and saw it was a complex analysis of emerging markets in Southeast Asia. "That's pretty heavy reading for leisure," he commented. Emma looked up at him. "I like to stay informed. I'm working on a consulting project about international investment strategies." Marcus was surprised, despite himself. "For what client?" Emma hesitated, then said quietly, "It's actually not for a client. It's just something I'm interested in." "Just something you're interested in?" Marcus repeated. "You're writing what looks like a dissertation on international finance just for fun?" Emma shrugged. "I like puzzles. Economics is just a very large, very complex puzzle. And I'm good at solving them." Marcus felt something uncomfortable, maybe a hint of curiosity about who this woman really was. But he pushed it away. It didn't matter. In 10 more months, she would be gone, and his life would go back to normal. In June, Marcus's business partners started asking questions about his sudden marriage. He'd managed to keep it quiet for a while, but gossip spread fast in their circles. His best friend and business partner, James, cornered him after a board meeting. "So you got married and didn't tell anyone?" James asked, half amused and half offended. "What's the story, Marcus? Who is she?" "It's complicated," Marcus said shortly. "Complicated how?" James pressed. "Come on. I've known you for 20 years. You've always said you'd never get married. What changed?" "My father's will changed," Marcus snapped. James's expression shifted to understanding. "Oh, the inheritance clause. I heard rumors about that. So this is what, a marriage of convenience?" "Something like that," Marcus admitted. "But it's handled. Everything's under control." James looked at him with something like pity. "Marcus, you can't control everything, and treating marriage like a business merger might come back to bite you." "I'm not treating it like anything," Marcus said defensively. "It's an arrangement. She understands that. Both of us do." "If you say so," James replied. But he didn't sound convinced. That night, Marcus came home to find Emma in the kitchen. It was late, past 11, and he was surprised to see her still awake. She was sitting at the counter with a cup of tea, working on her laptop. She looked up when he entered, and Marcus noticed she looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping well. "Long day?" Marcus asked, more to fill the silence than because he really wanted to know. Emma nodded. "My mother's treatment isn't responding as well as her doctors hoped. They want to try a more aggressive approach, but it's going to be harder on her." "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and he meant it. Despite everything, despite the cold business arrangement between them, he wouldn't wish that kind of stress on anyone. "Thank you," Emma said quietly. She looked at him for a moment, and Marcus had the uncomfortable feeling she was seeing straight through him. "Mr. Sullivan, can I ask you something? We've been married for 2 months. You can call me Marcus." Emma nodded. "Marcus. Then, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Do you ever wonder if your father was right? If maybe he knew you needed something more than just work and money? If maybe he was trying to give you a gift instead of a punishment?" Marcus felt a flash of anger. He didn't need his father's wisdom or gifts. His father had tried to control him from beyond the grave, and Marcus was simply following the rules to get what was rightfully his. "My father," Marcus said coldly, "thought he knew what was best for everyone. But he didn't know me. I don't need to be fixed or saved or taught some life lesson about commitment. I need to run my company and fulfill the terms of his will. That's all this is." Emma looked at him with something that might have been disappointment. "Of course. That's all this is." She closed her laptop and stood up. "Good night, Marcus." "Emma," Marcus called after her, though he didn't know why. She paused. "I didn't mean to." Emma shook her head. "You meant exactly what you said, and you're right. This is a business arrangement." I shouldn't have tried to make it into something it's not. She walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone in the kitchen, feeling like he'd failed some test he didn't even know he was taking. The months continued to pass. Summer turned to fall. Marcus's company launched a major acquisition that required all his attention, 16-hour days and constant travel. When he was home, he barely saw Emma. They were like ships passing in the night, two people sharing a space but not a life. And then, in October, everything changed. Marcus came home early one afternoon, something he almost never did. He'd wrapped up a meeting ahead of schedule and decided to work from home for the rest of the day. When he walked into the penthouse, he heard Emma's voice coming from her room. She was on the phone, and her voice was strained. "Yes, doctor." "Patterson, I understand. I know the treatment is expensive. I'm working on getting the funds together." There was a pause. "No, please don't stop treatment. I'll have the money, I promise. I'll have it by the end of the month." Marcus stood in the hallway, frozen. The contract payment to Emma wasn't due until their marriage reached the 12-month mark, still 2 months away. Whatever medical crisis her mother was facing, Emma didn't have the money to cover it. Another pause, and then Emma's voice cracked. "Please, she's my mother. She's all I have left. I'll get you the money. Just please don't stop trying to save her." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. He walked away before Emma could discover him listening. He went to his office and sat down at his desk, but he couldn't focus on work. All he could think about was Emma's voice, broken and desperate, begging a doctor to save her mother's life. That night, Marcus made a phone call to his accountant. "Wire $500,000 to Emma Torres' account immediately." "But sir," the accountant protested, "the contract payment isn't due until December." "I don't care," Marcus said. "Do it now, and don't tell her it came from me." The next morning, Marcus heard Emma on the phone again, but this time her voice was different, shocked, tearful in a good way. "I don't understand. There must be some mistake. I didn't deposit anything." A pause. An anonymous donor, but who would? A long silence. "Dr. Patterson, are you absolutely sure? The full amount for the entire treatment protocol?" Emma's voice broke. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know how this happened, but thank you." Marcus stood outside his office door, listening, and felt something unfamiliar. It might have been satisfaction at solving a problem, or it might have been something else, something he didn't want to name. That evening, Emma sought him out. She found him in his office, working through quarterly reports. "Marcus, I need to talk to you." He looked up, affecting an expression of polite interest. "What's up?" "Did you—" Emma started, then stopped. She seemed to be struggling with something. "Someone made an anonymous donation to cover my mother's treatment. The full amount she needs. I know it was you." Marcus kept his face carefully neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." Emma stepped into the office. "Please don't lie to me. The timing is too perfect. The amount is too specific. It was you. Why did you do it? The contract payment isn't due for 2 more months." Marcus set down his pen and looked at her. "If someone wanted to help your mother, does it matter why?" "It matters to me," Emma said quietly. "Is this pity? Is this guilt because you know you're using me? Or is this something else?" Marcus stood up, suddenly uncomfortable with this conversation. "It's called fulfilling my obligations. Your mother's treatment was always part of our agreement, even if not explicitly stated. This ensures you can focus on your role without distraction." "Your role," Emma repeated, and there was something sharp in her voice now. "Is that all I am to you? A role? An employee?" Marcus didn't answer, because he didn't know how to answer truthfully without admitting things he wasn't ready to admit. Emma watched him for a moment, and then she did something unexpected. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You know what's funny, Marcus? I came into this thinking I was making a sacrifice, that I was prostituting my dignity for money to save my mother. but you're the one who's really sacrificed something. You've sacrificed the ability to see people as anything other than transactions. And that's so much sadder than anything I've lost. What's that supposed to mean? Marcus asked defensively. Emma moved closer, and Marcus found himself unable to step back. It means that I know who you are now. I've watched you for 8 months. You're brilliant at business, ruthless in negotiations, and absolutely terrified of anything that might make you feel something real. You built a wall around yourself so high that you can't see over it anymore. And your father knew that. That's why he put that clause in his will. He wasn't trying to punish you, Marcus. He was trying to save you. Before Marcus could respond, Emma turned and walked out of his office. But her words stayed with him, echoing in his mind long after she was gone, terrified of anything that might make you feel something real. Was that true? Marcus tried to dismiss it, tried to convince himself Emma was just being emotional. But doubt had taken root, and it grew over the following weeks. November arrived, and with it came the holiday season. Marcus's social calendar filled up with events, parties, galas, dinners, and for the first time, he started paying real attention to Emma at these events. He noticed how she handled herself with grace and intelligence, how she could discuss economic policy with senators and art history with museum directors, how people were drawn to her warmth and genuine interest in their lives. At a Thanksgiving charity dinner, Marcus watched Emma spend 20 minutes talking to an elderly woman who'd been widowed recently. Emma held the woman's hand, listened to stories about her late husband, and when the woman started crying, Emma hugged her without hesitation. Marcus felt something shift inside him watching that moment. When had anyone in his life shown that kind of genuine compassion? When had he? On the drive home that night, Marcus broke their usual silence. "You were good with that woman tonight." "Mrs. Henderson." Emma looked at him, surprised he'd noticed. She was lonely. The holidays are hard when you've lost someone. You knew that just from talking to her. Emma nodded. "I lost my father 5 years ago. I remember that first holiday season without him. How everything felt wrong. Like the world was celebrating and you couldn't figure out how to join in anymore. Mrs. Henderson's husband died 8 months ago. She's still in that place where everything hurts." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry about your father." Emma smiled sadly. "Thank you. He would have liked you, actually. He was all business, too. Worked himself into an early grave building his accounting firm. I swore I wouldn't make the same mistake he did. Wouldn't sacrifice everything for work. And then my mom got sick. And here I am, married to a stranger for money. Life's ironic that way. Do you regret it?" Marcus heard himself ask. "Marrying me. I mean," Emma considered the question carefully. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret saving my mother's life. But I regret that we're wasting something that could have been meaningful." "What could have been meaningful?" Marcus asked, his heart beating faster. "This," Emma said simply, "us. If you'd let it. But you won't. Because that would require admitting you might want something beyond money and power. And that terrifies you more than any business failure ever could." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. Because Emma was right, and they both knew it. December arrived, and with it came the awareness that their contract was almost complete. 2 more weeks, and the 12-month period would end. Emma would get her final payment. They would file for a quiet divorce, and Marcus would have his inheritance secured. Everything had gone according to plan. Except Marcus found himself dreading the end. He started making excuses to be home more. He initiated conversations over dinner. He asked Emma about her consulting work and actually listened to her answers. He learned that she'd written papers on economic development that had been published in major journals, that she'd turned down multiple job offers from Fortune 500 companies because she wanted to maintain flexibility to care for her mother, that she spoke 3 languages and had lived in 7 different countries. That she was brilliant and kind and funny and completely unlike anyone Marcus had ever known. One evening, a week before their contract would end, Marcus found Emma packing boxes in her room. "What are you doing?" he asked from the doorway. "Getting ready," Emma said without looking at him. "The contract ends in 8 days. I figured I should start preparing to move out. Where will you go?" "Back to my apartment in Brooklyn. I kept the lease even though I haven't been there much. I'll get back to my regular consulting work. My mother's treatment is going well. I can focus on rebuilding my career now." Emma spoke in a practical, business-like tone, but Marcus detected something underneath it. Sadness, maybe, or resignation. "Emma," Marcus started, then stopped. "What if we didn't end this?" Emma finally looked at him. "What?" "The contract," Marcus said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "What if we extended it? Or what if we stayed married? For real? Not as a business arrangement, as an actual marriage." Emma set down the sweater she'd been folding. "Marcus, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want you to leave," Marcus admitted. "I'm saying these past few months, I've realized I'm saying I think I made a mistake treating this like a business deal when it could have been more, could be more. If you wanted—" Emma's eyes filled with tears, and Marcus's heart raced. But then she shook her head. No, Marcus, I can't do this. What? Why not?" "Because you don't love me," Emma said, her voice breaking. "You like me. Maybe you even want me around because I'm convenient or comfortable. But you don't love me. And I can't stay in a marriage with someone who's just settling for me because the alternative is being alone." Marcus stepped into the room. "How do you know I don't love you? Have you asked?" Emma laughed through her tears. "I don't need to ask. I can see it, Marcus. In the way you still introduce me as Emma, not as your wife. In the way you've never once in 12 months told me I look beautiful or held my hand without it being for an audience. In the way you planned this entire marriage as a 12-month contract with an end date circled on your calendar. That's not love. That's convenience." "You're wrong," Marcus said desperately. I think Emma held up her hand. Please don't say something you don't mean just because you're afraid of being alone again. You'll regret it, and I'll regret hearing it." She turned back to her packing, and Marcus stood there feeling helpless, a sensation completely foreign to him. He wanted to argue, to convince her, to somehow prove that what he felt was real, even though he wasn't entirely sure himself. But Emma had already dismissed him, and Marcus didn't know how to fight for something when he'd spent his entire life avoiding it. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling, Emma's words echoing in his mind. "You don't love me." But the thing was, Marcus wasn't sure anymore. Maybe she was right. Maybe he didn't know what love was. He'd avoided it for so long, built such high walls, that he'd never learned to recognize it. Or maybe, terrifyingly, he did love her, and he'd realized it too late. The next morning, Marcus made a decision. He canceled all his meetings for the day and drove to his father's grave. It was a cold December morning, the cemetery quiet and covered in frost. He stood in front of Richard Sullivan's headstone and spoke out loud for the first time since the funeral. "You win, Dad," Marcus said, his breath fogging in the cold air. "You were right. I needed to learn commitment. I needed to learn that there are things more important than money. I needed to learn how to love someone. And you gave me the perfect opportunity to learn all of that. I just waited until it was too late to do anything about it." The wind rustled through the bare trees, and Marcus felt tears on his face. He couldn't remember the last time he'd cried. "Emma's leaving in a week," Marcus continued, "and I deserve it. I treated her like an employee, like a means to an end. I was so focused on protecting myself that I didn't see what I had right in front of me. Someone who's kind and smart and strong. Someone who could have loved me if I'd given her any reason to. Someone I think I do love, even though I don't know how to show it. He stood there for a long time, letting himself feel everything he'd been suppressing. The grief for his father, the regret for wasted months, the fear that he'd lost something irreplaceable before he even understood its value. Finally, he spoke one more time. I don't know how to fix this, Dad, but I'm going to try. Because you taught me that Sullivans don't give up on things that matter, and Emma matters. Even if I'm 12 months too late figuring that out. Marcus drove back to the city with a plan forming in his mind. He couldn't change the past 12 months. He couldn't take back the coldness, the distance, the times he'd made Emma feel like she was nothing more than a contractual obligation. But he could show her, through actions rather than words, that he'd changed, that she'd changed him. Over the next 4 days, Marcus threw himself into a different kind of project. He called Emma's mother's doctor and arranged for the absolute best continuing care. Specialists from around the world if needed, all expenses covered for life. He contacted Emma's former colleagues and mentors, discreetly letting them know she was available for consulting work and singing her praises. He arranged for her publications to be featured in prominent economic journals with proper recognition for her groundbreaking research. And he did all of it anonymously, knowing Emma would refuse if she knew it came from him. But Marcus also knew these actions weren't enough. Emma had said he didn't show her love, didn't make her feel valued or beautiful or wanted. He needed to prove that he saw her, really saw her, for who she was, not despite her appearance, but completely separate from it. On the morning of December 15th, 3 days before their contract officially ended, Marcus walked into Emma's room without knocking. Emma looked up from her laptop, surprised. "Marcus? What's wrong?" "I need to tell you something," Marcus said. "And I need you to listen without interrupting until I'm done. Can you do that?" Emma closed her laptop slowly, uncertainty in her eyes. "Okay." Marcus took a deep breath. "When I met you 10 months ago, I saw a transaction, a solution to my problem, someone who fit the role I needed filled. I looked at you and immediately cataloged all the ways you weren't what I expected or wanted in a wife, all the ways you didn't fit the image I thought I should have on my arm. I was cruel in my thoughts and cold in my actions, and I'm sorrier for that than I know how to express." Emma started to speak, but Marcus held up his hand. "I'm not done. Over these months, you did exactly what we agreed. You played your role perfectly. You attended events and smiled for cameras and never once complained about the arrangement we had. You were professional and appropriate and exactly what the contract required. And somewhere in all of that, something happened that I didn't expect and didn't prepare for. I started to see you, not as a role or a transaction, but as a person, as Emma. I saw how you read 4 books a week on subjects most people find intimidating. I saw how you talked to lonely old women at parties and made them feel seen. I saw how you worried about your mother and worked on consulting projects at midnight and still managed to ask me about my day even when I never reciprocated. I saw intelligence and compassion and strength. I saw someone who was better than me in almost every way. And instead of appreciating that, I felt threatened by it. So I kept my distance. I maintained the walls. I told myself this was just business because that was safe. Except now the contract is almost over, and you're leaving. And I realized that somewhere in these 12 months, I fell in love with you. Not with the idea of having a wife. Not with the convenience of not being alone. With you. With the woman who stayed up until 3 a.m. finishing a paper on emerging markets because you were fascinated by the puzzle. With the woman who stands up for herself and doesn't let me push her around even when I'm being an ass. With the woman who looks at me and sees through all my defenses to the scared person underneath. I don't expect you to believe me. I don't expect you to stay. I know I wasted our 12 months together, and I can't get that time back. But I needed you to know that you were right. I was terrified of feeling something real, and you made me feel everything I'd spent my life avoiding. And instead of thanking you for that gift, I pushed you away. Emma was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Marcus wanted to reach for her but didn't, afraid she'd reject his touch. "The worst part," Marcus continued, his voice cracking, "is that you deserve so much better than what I gave you. You deserve someone who tells you you're beautiful every day, someone who holds your hand because he wants to, not because cameras are watching, someone who introduces you as his wife with pride, not as an obligation, someone who saw your value from day one and never made you feel like you weren't enough. I can't change the past, but I want to be that person for you going forward. If you'll let me, if it's not too late." The room was silent except for Emma's quiet crying. Marcus felt his heart breaking, certain that his confession had come too late, that Emma would pack her bags and leave, and he would spend the rest of his life knowing he'd had something precious and thrown it away. But then Emma spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Do you mean it? Do you really love me? Or are you just scared of being alone again?" "I mean it," Marcus said, and he'd never meant anything more in his life. "I love you. I love your brilliant mind and your kind heart. I love the way you get excited about economic theories and the way you worry about your mother. I love that you stood up to me and didn't let me treat you as less than you are. I love you, Emma. And I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking for one anyway." Emma wiped her eyes and looked at him, really looked at him, in a way that made Marcus feel completely exposed. "If I stay," she said slowly, "it can't be like before. No more separate bedrooms and separate lives, no more walls. If we're married, we're actually married. Partners, equals. Someone who's in this with me completely." "I understand," Marcus said. "That's what I want too." Emma stood up and walked toward him, and Marcus held his breath. She stopped just inches away from him, so close he could see gold flecks in her brown eyes. "Prove it," Emma said. "Prove that this isn't just fear of being alone or panic at the contract ending. Prove that you see me, that you value me, that you love me. Not with money or gifts or grand gestures, with the small things, with every day choosing me." Marcus reached out slowly and took her hand, waiting to see if she would pull away. She didn't. "I will," he promised. "Every single day for the rest of my life, I'll prove it." Emma smiled through her tears. "Then I'm staying." Marcus felt relief crash over him like a wave. But before he could speak, Emma continued. "But Marcus, I need you to know something too. I didn't stay neutral in these 12 months. Somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you too. With the man underneath all the armor. The man who paid for my mother's treatment and tried to pretend he didn't. The man who looks exhausted from working too hard, but still asks if I need anything. The man who's capable of so much more than he lets himself show. So yes, I'm staying. But I'm staying because I believe in who you can be, who you are when you let yourself be vulnerable. Don't make me regret that belief." Marcus pulled her into his arms, and for the first time since their wedding day, he kissed his wife. Not for cameras or appearances, but because he wanted to, because he loved her, because she was giving him a second chance he knew he didn't deserve but would spend the rest of his life earning. When they finally pulled apart, Emma smiled up at him. "So what now? Now," Marcus said, "we start over. Do this right. Date. Fall in love all over again, except this time I'm paying attention. This time I'm not taking you for granted. This time I'm choosing you every single day." "I'd like that," Emma said softly. "But Marcus, one more thing." "What's that?" "I want to actually move into your bedroom. This separate rooms thing was fine for the contract, but if we're really married, I want to fall asleep next to you. I want to wake up and know you're there. I want all of it." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I want that too." They stood there holding each other, and Marcus marveled at how different this moment felt from their wedding day 10 months ago. Then, they'd been strangers signing a contract. Now, they were two people who'd found each other despite themselves, despite walls and fears and all the ways Marcus had tried to keep Emma at arm's length. That night, Emma moved her belongings into Marcus's room. They fell asleep side by side, and for the first time in months, Marcus slept soundly. Over the following weeks, Marcus learned what it meant to truly be married. He learned to ask Emma about her day and actually listen to her answers. He learned to notice when she was tired or stressed and step in to help. He learned to tell her she was beautiful, not because he felt he should, but because it was true and he wanted her to know he saw her. And Emma taught him things too. She taught him that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that letting someone see his fears and insecurities didn't make him less of a man, that love wasn't about control or power, but about choosing someone every day and letting them choose you back. On New Year's Eve, Marcus took Emma to the charity gala where they'd first appeared in public as a married couple 8 months earlier. But this time, everything was different. He held her hand as they walked in, and it wasn't for show. He introduced her to colleagues as my brilliant wife Emma, and the pride in his voice was genuine. And when they danced, he held her close and whispered, "I love you," in her ear, meaning it completely. Emma looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I'm thinking about my father," Marcus admitted. About how angry I was at him for putting that marriage clause in his will. About how it felt like he was trying to control me from beyond the grave. But now I understand. He wasn't controlling me. He was giving me the greatest gift he could. He was making sure I didn't spend my whole life alone, building walls and missing out on this. Emma squeezed his hand. "He would be proud of you, of who you've become." "I hope so," Marcus said, "because I'm proud of who I've become too. And that's because of you. You made me better. Emma, you made me want to be better." They danced in silence for a while, and then Marcus spoke again. "I want to renew our vows." "What?" Emma asked, surprised. "But we're already married." "I know," Marcus said. "But I want to do it right this time. I want a real wedding, with your family and my friends and vows that we write ourselves. I want to stand in front of everyone and tell them that I love you and I choose you, not because of a contract, but because you're the best thing that ever happened to me." Emma was crying now. Happy tears that made Marcus's heart ache with love for her. "I want that too," she whispered. "Then it's settled," Marcus said, spinning her in the dance. "We'll plan a real wedding, and this time, I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. Because this time, I'm marrying the woman I love." 2 months later, on a sunny March afternoon, Marcus and Emma renewed their vows in a small garden ceremony. Emma's mother was there, healthy and glowing, sitting in the front row with tears of joy. Marcus's friends and colleagues watched as he and Emma stood facing each other, holding hands, speaking the vows they'd written themselves. Emma went first. "Marcus, when I married you a year ago, I thought I was making a practical choice. I was wrong. I was making the best choice of my life, even if neither of us knew it yet. You've taught me that people can change, that walls can come down, that love can grow in the most unexpected places. You've shown me every day since December that you see me, value me, and choose me. And I choose you too, not because I have to, but because I want to. Because life is better with you in it, because you're my partner, my best friend, and the love of my life." Then Marcus spoke, his voice steady even as tears rolled down his face. "Emma, I stood next to you a year ago and said I do, and I meant it as a contract. Today, I stand next to you and say I do again, and I mean it as a promise to love you every day, a promise to see you, all of you, and celebrate the incredible person you are, a promise to be vulnerable with you, to let down my walls, to be the man you believed I could be even when I didn't believe it myself. You saved me, Emma, not from losing my inheritance, but from losing myself. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know how grateful I am, how much I love you, how completely you changed my world for the better." They exchanged new rings, these ones inscribed with words Marcus had chosen carefully. On the inside of Emma's ring, it said, "You were always enough." And on the inside of Marcus's ring, Emma had inscribed, "You learn to see." When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife again, Marcus kissed Emma like his life depended on it. And in many ways, it did. Because Emma had become his whole world, his whole heart, everything that mattered. As they walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, Marcus looked at the gathered guests and felt something he'd never felt before. Complete happiness, pure joy, the certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be, with exactly the person he was meant to be with. Later, at the reception, Emma's mother pulled Marcus aside. "Thank you," she said, squeezing his hand, "for loving my daughter, for seeing what so many people missed because they only looked at her surface, for giving her the life she deserves." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I'm the lucky one. Mrs. Torres. Emma could have married anyone, but she chose me, even when I gave her every reason not to. And I promise you, I will spend every day of my life making sure she never regrets that choice." Emma's mother smiled. "I know you will. I can see it in the way you look at her. Like she's the most precious thing in your world." "She is," Marcus said simply, because she was. That night, as they danced their first dance as a truly married couple, Emma rested her head on Marcus's shoulder. "Are you happy?" she asked. Marcus looked down at his wife, at the woman who'd agreed to a contract marriage for money and somehow ended up saving his life instead. "Happier than I ever knew I could be," he answered honestly, "and it's all because of you." Emma smiled. "We did this together, Marcus. I changed you, but you changed me too. You showed me that people are worth believing in, that second chances are real, that love can grow even in the most unlikely circumstances." They kept dancing, and Marcus thought about his father's will, about the clause that had seemed like such a burden a year ago. Richard Sullivan had known his son needed something more than money. He'd known Marcus needed someone who would challenge him, push him, refuse to accept his walls. He'd needed Emma. 3 months later, Emma came to Marcus with news that changed everything again. She found him in his office, working through reports, and she had a strange expression on her face. Nervous, but excited. Marcus looked up. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Emma said, sitting down across from his desk. "But I have something to tell you." Marcus's heart started racing. "What is it? Are you okay? I'm pregnant," Emma said, and then she laughed at the expression on Marcus's face. "We're having a baby. Marcus!" Marcus stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. He came around the desk and pulled Emma into his arms. "A baby," he repeated, his voice full of wonder. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," Emma confirmed, tears of joy streaming down her face. Marcus kissed her, then dropped to his knees and placed his hands gently on her stomach. There was no visible sign yet, but Marcus felt overwhelmed with love for this child he hadn't even met. "I'm going to be a father," he whispered. "And Emma, I promise you, I promise our baby, I'm going to be different from my father. I'm going to be present. I'm going to show up. I'm going to love you both with everything I have." Emma ran her fingers through his hair. "I know you will. Because you've already shown me who you are. And you're going to be an amazing father." Over the following months, Marcus watched Emma's body change and marveled at the miracle growing inside her. He went to every doctor's appointment, held her hand during ultrasounds, and felt his heart expand every time he heard their baby's heartbeat. He read parenting books and asked questions and prepared the nursery with the same intensity he'd once brought to corporate mergers. But more importantly, he was there. He was present. He rubbed Emma's back when she couldn't sleep. He made midnight runs to the store for whatever food she was craving. He talked to their baby every night, telling stories and making promises about the life they would build together as a family. And through it all, Marcus felt grateful. Grateful for his father's wisdom. Grateful for Emma's patience. Grateful that he'd been forced into a situation that seemed like a burden, but turned out to be the greatest blessing of his life. On a warm September afternoon, Emma went into labor. Marcus held her hand through contractions, breathed with her through the pain, and when their daughter finally arrived screaming and perfect, he cried harder than he'd ever cried in his life. "She's beautiful," Emma whispered, exhausted and glowing. "Just like her mother," Marcus said, kissing Emma's forehead. "Thank you. Thank you for giving me this. Thank you for giving me everything." They named their daughter Catherine, after Marcus's mother who'd passed away when he was young. And when Marcus held his daughter for the first time, felt her tiny hand wrap around his finger, he made silent promises. Promises to be present. Promises to show her that worth has nothing to do with appearance. Promises to love her mother every single day so Catherine would grow up knowing what real love looks like. 6 months after Catherine was born, Marcus stood in his office at Sullivan Financial and looked out over the city. His company was thriving, more successful than ever. But that success meant different things to him now. It wasn't about power or proving something. It was about building a legacy for his daughter, about creating something meaningful that would make his family proud. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. She'd sent a photo of Catherine laughing, her whole face lit up with joy. Marcus smiled, saved the photo, and then did something he would have never done 2 years ago. He shut down his computer, packed his briefcase, and left the office at 5 o'clock, because work could wait. His family couldn't. When Marcus walked into their home, he found Emma on the floor with Catherine, reading a book together. Both of them looked up when he entered, and the smiles on their faces made everything, every struggle, every moment of vulnerability and fear, absolutely worth it. "You're home early," Emma said, surprised. "I decided I'd rather be here," Marcus replied, sitting down next to them and pulling both Emma and Catherine into his arms. "This is where I belong." Emma kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you. I love you too," Marcus said. "Both of you. More than anything in this world." Catherine babbled something incomprehensible and grabbed Marcus's tie, and he laughed. Let her have it. She could have anything she wanted, his whole heart, his whole life, everything. Because that's what family meant. That's what love meant. Giving everything and receiving more than you ever knew was possible in return. That evening, after Catherine was asleep, Marcus and Emma sat together on their balcony, looking out over the city lights. "Do you ever think about where we started?" Emma asked, leaning against Marcus. "All the time," Marcus admitted. "I think about how stupid I was. How close I came to losing you because I was too proud and too scared to see what was right in front of me. But you didn't lose me," Emma said, "and you're not that person anymore." Marcus pulled her closer. "I'm not. And that's because you didn't give up on me. You saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. You believed I could be better. And you were patient enough to wait for me to figure it out." Emma smiled. "We were good for each other. You pushed me to value myself more. I pushed you to open your heart. We built something beautiful together." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Marcus spoke again. "I want to tell you something." "What?" Emma asked. "I went to my father's grave last week. I brought Catherine. I wanted him to meet his granddaughter, even if only in spirit. And I thanked him for the will, for the clause, for forcing me into a situation I never would have chosen for myself, because it gave me you, and you gave me everything." Emma had tears in her eyes. "He would be so proud of you, Marcus, of who you've become, of the family you've built." "I hope so," Marcus said, "because I'm proud too. Not of my company or my success, but of this, of us. Of the fact that I get to wake up every morning next to you and fall asleep every night knowing that I'm loved and that I love someone completely. That's the real wealth, Emma. That's what matters." Emma kissed him, pouring all her love into that kiss. And they stayed like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two people who'd started as strangers in a contract marriage and somehow found their way to a love that was real and deep and unshakable. 5 years later, Marcus and Emma sat in the same garden where they'd renewed their vows, watching Catherine play with her baby brother William. Emma was laughing at something Catherine said, and Marcus felt his heart so full he thought it might burst. He thought about the man he'd been 6 years ago. Cold, closed off, measuring everything in terms of profit and loss. He barely recognized that person now. Sullivan Financial was still successful, but Marcus had restructured his role. He worked reasonable hours. He took vacations with his family. He coached Catherine's soccer team on weekends. And he made sure that every single day, Emma and his children knew they were the center of his universe, not an afterthought to his business empire. "We did good, didn't we?" Emma said, coming to sit beside him while the kids played. Marcus took her hand. "We did amazing. You did amazing. I just got lucky that you were patient enough to stick around while I figured out what mattered." Emma rested her head on his shoulder. "Love you, Marcus." "Love you too," Marcus replied. Always. And he meant it. Because Emma Torres, the woman he'd married in a cold business transaction, had taught him the most important lesson he'd ever learned. That true wealth isn't measured in dollars or assets or quarterly reports. It's measured in moments like this, in laughter and hand-holding and children playing, in choosing someone every single day and being chosen in return, in building a life, not just a fortune. Now, rate this story from 0 to 10. Let us know what you thought. Was it the powerful journey of transformation and redemption you were hoping for? And if you believe that a person's worth has nothing to do with their appearance, that people can change and grow when they're challenged by someone who truly sees them, that love can grow in the most unexpected places when we let down our walls and allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We have more incredible true stories coming your way every week. Thank you so much for watching Marcus and Emma's story. Remember, prejudice and judgment based on appearance rob us of beautiful connections and relationships. Every person you meet has depth, intelligence, and value that has nothing to do with how they look. Take time to see people, really see them. Ask questions. Listen to answers. Challenge your own assumptions about what makes someone worthy of love or respect. And if you've ever felt judged, overlooked, or underestimated because of how you look, know that those people were missing out. Not you. The right person, the right people, will see your worth. They'll value your mind, your heart, your character. And that's the love worth waiting for. Until next time, this is Deep Stories, where every story reminds us that transformation is possible, that love can change us in the most profound ways, that families are built on choice and commitment, and that sometimes the things we resist most fiercely turn out to be exactly what we needed. See you in the next one.